Alright, now we got video 2 going on, starting with section 6.4, talking about consumer buying decisions and consumer involvement. Now with this, definitely be aware of these next 3 slides, starting with this one here. Very important here, knowing the difference between what's called a routine response behavior, limited decision making, and extensive decision making. And going from left to right on this continuum, you will see that less involvement with your purchases on the left-hand side, that's where you buy something similar over and over again, frequent purchases, usually low cost. You don't really have to search out information about it. You've made these purchases before. All right, you buy first, you evaluate later. The second one, the middle one, with a little bit more involvement needed with this decision making and this purchase, is called limited decision making. And with this one, you have previous experience with this product, but not really familiar with current brands that are available. You have to spend a little bit of time researching and searching out information on the different alternatives that are out there before you can make your decision. And over on the right-hand side, where you have more involvement, this usually applies to products that are unfamiliar to you, maybe products that are more expensive that you have to spend more money on, or something that you very infrequently purchase. This is by far the most complex type of consumer buying decisions because it's usually associated with a lot of involvement, very, very high involvement on the part of the consumer. You have to spend more time and effort researching and learning about the product before you actually invest in it. The term involvement is just simply referring to the amount of time and effort that you put into your search and your decision-making process. Now this next table here is going to show you your amount of involvement, time, cost, information search, and usually the number of alternatives that are available with your product based upon your 3 levels of your buying decisions. All right, so you can see usually low involvement, short amount of time for the routine. Then you move, as you're moving from left to right, you're increasing your involvement, you're increasing your time, you're increasing the cost, number of alternatives, and all of that, until you get to your extensive one where everything is going to be higher, more expensive, more time. Okay, and as I mentioned before, your routine response behavior, usually very little involvement. You've probably purchased this product numerous times before. You know what you're buying. You've used it before. You've bought it before. You usually stick with the same brand. It's a usually quick, fast, easy decision that you're going to be making. The limited decision making is when there is a little bit more involvement, usually a little bit more cost and time researching it as well. You usually have more options in this one too, so you have to spend a little bit more time to make sure you're getting the right product. The extensive decision making, a lot of times this one, you don't know a lot about the product. As I mentioned before, it could be more expensive. You have to spend more time because you have to, if you're investing this kind of money into a product, you want to make sure you're getting the right product and you're purchasing the right thing. 4 major factors that determine the level of consumer involvement. Okay, this is how much time you're going to be spending. Could be previous experience, so that you have to understand that when you as a consumer have had previous experience with a product, the level of involvement decreases because you can make the choice quicker because you already have that prior experience and information. The interest level, involvement is directly related to your interest. So the more interest you have, the more involvement there will be, the more time that you're willing to spend because it's something that you enjoy doing. The third one, perceived risk of negative consequences. Okay, so for this one, as the risk increases, so does the amount of the involvement. So if there's a higher amount of risk to what you're purchasing, you want to spend more time researching and learning about it, getting as much knowledge and information as you possibly can before making the decision. And then lastly, social visibility. Involvement increases as the social visibility of a product increases. All right, this could be, examples of these products could be cars, clothing, jewelry, things that people will see you wearing, see you in, see you using on a regular basis. All right, so now these different forms of involvement, just going down through them quickly. Product involvement means that a product category has high personal relevance. Situational involvement means that the circumstances of a purchase may, very briefly anyway, take a purchase from a low involvement decision to a high involvement decision, based upon different factors, of course. Time might be one of them. Shopping involvement represents the personal relevance of the process of shopping. Today, a lot of shoppers, they don't browse as much as they did in the past. There are many that make fewer impulse buys. You know, they don't just see it, want it, buy it. They actually think through things a little bit more. The fourth one, enduring involvement. This is an ongoing interest that you have with a product, an activity, whatever it happens to be. And then the fifth one, emotional involvement, represents how emotional a consumer gets during some specific consumption of activity. So a lot of times this one can be related to like athletics. Some people are really emotionally involved with a sports team, diehard fans. They can relate to an emotional involvement in that regard. Your team, of course, the Broncos just won the Super Bowl. You know, a lot of people are out buying products. They are buying clothing and hats and different things that have that Super Bowl champion logo on it. All right, marketing implications of involvement. For the high involvement products, this is where good advertisement gives consumers the information that they need for making the purchase decision. High involvement, they want information. Advertising, good advertising can be one way of giving them that information, not making them search as much. For low involvement purchases, though, customers may not even recognize that their needs and wants until they maybe are in a store. So the in-store promotions, packaging, think about going through a grocery store and you're walking down the cereal aisle. You know, you could have, sometimes you'll have the coupons kind of sticking out. They have the coupon dispensers there to give people incentive to buy the product. Sometimes the packaging, especially think of it as a younger kid. When you were younger and you were in the grocery store with your mom, wasn't there some packaging that was geared just towards you? The packaging that had cartoon characters or bright colors, or they had the toy in the box. They had some sort of a prize in the box. You know, whatever the cereal was didn't matter, but the prize mattered. That kind of stuff can really get people's attention, and those are things that could potentially get people to buy a product with that low involvement, usually low cost, something that they buy on a regular basis. All right, cultural factors, okay, is next. Now, what you can see here is that there are multiple factors that will influence your buying decision. Cultural and social factors, psychological and individual factors could have an impact or an influence on the consumer decision-making process, which in turn relates to whether or not you buy or do not buy the product in the end. All right, this listing here contains the major defining components of a culture. I would recommend, for the sake of time, look up these different components of the culture in your textbook. Make sure that you just have a brief understanding of the difference between each of these. Just a very brief understanding. Now this one though, culture, what they mean by these four things, pervasive. Cultural values influence your individual everyday life. But having said that, a lot of people are unaware of that cultural presence in your life and in your daily decisions. What you eat, how you dress, how you speak, the dialect, even the accent that you speak are all dimensions of culture. All right, functional is second. By establishing expectations, culture gives order to society. All right, the functional aspect are things such as laws that help provide order to society. The third one, being learned, just stating that culture is not genetic. Consumers have to learn what is acceptable, and it can be acceptable based upon family, it could be based upon your friends. There's a lot that goes into this that impacts that decision. And lastly, dynamic. It adapts to changing needs and also your environment just evolving. The rapid growth of technology has totally accelerated the rate of cultural change. As technology changes, there's a component of culture that changes as well. All right, value is the most defining element of a culture. The values are the most defining element of a culture. Values, as you can see here, you can see exactly what it is, but people with similar values and value systems tend to react alike to different prices, to other marketing related elements that are thrown at them. Values also correspond to consumption patterns, how often they buy and use products, what they're buying and what they're using as well. In the United States, there are countless subcultures that can be identified within our borders. There's an example that the book has. It says the United States' growing Hispanic population has made South and Central American subcultures a prime focus for many companies with large marketing budgets. So in essence, one of the subcultures being the Hispanic population, it has been growing so rapidly that businesses need to pay attention to that and begin to make products that specifically meet the needs and wants of that particular subculture that is growing. All right, social class. There is a view of contemporary U.S. status structure in the book, and it is in Exhibit 6.4. Okay, Exhibit 6.4. Social class is just a group of people that are considered practically equal in regards to status in the community. People of similar status or social class. Okay, here are the different U.S. social classes: upper class, middle class, and lower class, and each of those classes are broken into two distinct categories as well. Here's your the Exhibit 6.4 that I was referring to. Right, so just want you to be aware in terms of consumer buying patterns, those who are considered affluent are more likely to own their own home, purchase new cars, purchase new vehicles, trucks, vans, whatever they are. They're actually even less likely to smoke, in all honesty. So knowing your different social classes, knowing what products are geared to them, how they buy, what they do, what products they use is a critical element to marketing. The 5 measures of social classes, as you can see here: occupation, income, education, wealth, and other variables. That's an important thing to know too. How is social class measured? It is not just income. Occupation, income, education, wealth, and then other variables that are thrown in there as well. And the last slide for this video is right here: impact of social class on marketing. Obviously, how are you going to advertise to them, depending upon who they are, what media they use is a big thing. How are you going to get the product to them? Where are they going to buy the product? And all of that. All right, so this is going to be the end then of the second video for Chapter 6.